Good morning again. There you go. And welcome to day 2 of the conference. And of course, I'm really excited as well to be here with you. In the past, we would typically follow Greg's corporate keynote with a product keynote. And we will have that tomorrow. And we will talk about Connect Edition, cloud services, digital workflows for our industry solutions. But you can take advantage of that right now. This year, we also wanted to share with you our future technology vision, sort of looking down the road ahead of the headlights. So welcome to the technology keynote. And I'm really excited that our founder and chief technology officer, Keith Bentley, will share the future vision with you. And after his opening comments, he's going to join me on stage for a conversation. We have some videos that we kind of made up last night. We thought we'd share them with you and sort of show you what's possible with this technology. So let me just set a stage and a context for the vision that Keith's going to share with you. Corey talked about digital transformation. You know our industry is going in the middle of a digital transformation. We're going digital. And your biggest challenge and your biggest opportunity is with your data. Data in your files, in your databases, across the different applications you use, and across your supply chains. So moving all of this data to the cloud doesn't help you get any more insights, all the wonderful services that Corey was mentioning. It's sort of estimated that companies are really effectively analyzing only about 1% of their data. The other 99%, Gartner calls dark data. Data that's being collected and stored, but not effectively used at all. So today you're going to hear from Keith about technology that's going to help you light up this dark data. Data about your projects, data about your assets, and then help you gain insights and manage the impact of change. Now, throughout the 33-year history of Bentley, Keith's vision has been about platform-driven innovation. And of course, it all began with MicroStation, our platform for design applications. Last year, we introduced, with the Connect Edition, a connected data environment. Greg talked about that yesterday. And back in 2009, we introduced another platform innovation called iModels. And the problem we were trying to solve at the time was interdisciplinary coordination and sharing of information. And with iModels, and this was, I think, the slide we introduced back then, we were about storing and sharing information in a container that had graphics, from 2D, simple geometry to complex 3D solids, engineering precision, and we also stored business properties. And we had that in a way that you didn't have to, it was self-describing. You didn't have to have the source application. And we've had wonderful adoption of this technology over the years. In fact, this year, over 25% of your finalist submissions have used iModels. And we found it began to get used outside of design, workflows we hadn't even thought about, handover into construction. Some owners began to mandate them as deliverables instead of PDF files. So let me just show you a few projects that have used this. This is United Utilities in the UK, adopting Bing workflows, I think a couple of £1 billion program for capital projects, and they were sharing their intelligent P&IDs with their supply chain. They didn't have to have the source applications. They could make effective decisions. They estimated that they were saving almost £40 million with this effective collaboration. Another great example in Sweden, a joint venture with Sweco and Tipsa. Many kilometers of rail, rock tunnels, new stations. They estimated they were sharing their design data across with standardizing it with 700 consultants, 7 countries, 50 disciplines, and using iModels. And the last example here is the iconic midfield terminal in Abu Dhabi. Probably some of you have flown through there. Over a $3 billion project, CCC used it to standardize, to collaborate across their entire supply chain. So really impressive projects. You derive value from iModels. And I want you to think of that as just the beginning of the value you can get from your engineering data. Insights that you want to get from your projects. how you might use AI and machine learning that Corey mentioned. And answer those questions is going to be provided by a colleague and somebody I've had the privilege to work with for the last 30 years. And frankly, I'm a bit jealous. That's Keith 30 years ago. And if I had a photograph of me 30 years ago, I'd have that much hair with me. But I think I'm going to get even. One day I'm going to come into work and he's going to look like this. But maybe it's going to take him another 30 years. So with that, I'd like to introduce our founder and chief technology officer, Keith Bentley.
That, of course, is Keith Richards. He and I often get confused. I understand when they try to make fun of Keith Richards, they show a picture of me. Anyway, yesterday Greg talked a lot about going digital and digital workflows, and he described the benefits of reusing and repurposing information across an entire asset lifecycle. And of course, iModels, as Bhupinder described, is our product for enabling that. And so my goal is to talk about our next generation of iModels. We call it iModel 2.0. It is both a cloud platform, and we're also going to describe this morning our new iModel Hub cloud service. Now, the theme of my talk is going to be embracing change. And I mean that both in the sense of keeping an open mind for new ideas, and I also mean embracing change quite literally. And I'll get to why I mean that in a minute. Now, I thought it was very interesting listening to Corey Sanders speak about Microsoft's new mission with cloud services in Azure and showing things like the large Azure data centers. Because I remember 35 years ago hearing a guy called Bill Gates from a little company called Microsoft talking about how the personal computer was going to revolutionize individual productivity. And I remember sitting there thinking, you know what? That guy's right. And I thought to myself, man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm all in. I want to get all over the personal computer. And we did, of course, and the personal computer, I think, even outshined Bill Gates' original predictions for what it would do. And now I hear Microsoft talking about the cloud and how the cloud is going to revolutionize our industry, the software industry certainly, but I think practically every other industry. And what I'm actually most excited about is the prospect for concepts like machine learning. I think that's for real too. And here I am thinking to myself, you know what? Those guys are right. And I'm all in, because I got to tell you, it isn't often you get two once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. But I think we've got one right now. And so Bentley Systems is going to try in any way they possibly can to embrace what we can do to make the promise of cloud computing, machine learning, and digital workflows work for your businesses. So that's my goal, is to talk about how we can do that for you. Now, I want to dispel a common misconception that I often hear when I talk to people about the cloud. I think most people, maybe not most, but at least some people think of the cloud as a large supercomputer with infinite resources, infinite memory, and can solve any problem instantly. Well, you can buy a big computer from Microsoft. Corey talked about it. Actually, I think they'll try to talk you out of it. The best solutions use leveraging the cloud. Instead, use not one big computer, but lots and lots of little computers. In fact, if you look at the resources that most applications running in the cloud use, it's about the same as a personal computer. So, in the days before personal computers, there was one computer for many humans. The personal computer changed that ratio to be 1-to-1. In the cloud world, it's many computers for a single individual. And I think that's the greatest opportunity. So when I talk about our cloud platform and I talk about our cloud service, the thing that I really am trying to convey is there can be many, many instances of this thing running all at the same time. And that's going to really leverage a lot of value. So let's talk about iModels. iModels are a way to collect large sets of information, all of the information usually, for a single project or a single asset into a single file. Now, iModel 1.0, it's a file. We probably would have described it when we first started as a container, because you could practically put anything you want into an iModel, and we would hold it in a file. And that has worked out fairly well, but I think we need to improve on that. So when I talk about iModel 2.0, there's still a thing called an iModel. An iModel is a file, but an iModel in the 2.0 world is also a relational database. I don't have time to go into why that's a good thing. Trust me, it is. But it's a relational database, and it's a file. I ask you to embrace change, because that's not the way most people think of either files or databases, one or the other. Sometimes people come to me and say, we want to get away from files and to database. I don't know how to answer that. We're going to put all the information for your project into a database, and it will be in a file. So there are three concepts that I think we started. Rupinder pointed out iModels were invented nearly 10 years ago, before we had the mission of the cloud, or the opportunity of the cloud, let's say. So we missed three things that I can think of that we really need to resolve to make the cloud-based iModels better than the current Generation 1 iModels. The first is a concept that I call alignment. And now I know there are some of you that work on roadway systems, and you have alignments. I don't mean anything about that. This is just a word I like to explain a problem that we have to solve. So Bhupinder described the concept of dark data, and he said, well, you know, it's data that resides on your disks, but you don't use it for any purpose. When, of course, the problem is not that the data itself is dark. The applications that created it obviously are able to understand it perfectly. But just taking it and putting it inside an iModel doesn't eliminate the problem that it's dark. The real problem, in my opinion, of why the data is considered to be dark is it's stored in a format by the application that created it by a programmer who was thinking only one job. I have to write my data out to disk so that I can read it back in the next session. And think of it as it being stored on your disk through a filter. The filter is aligned however that programmer thought. Another file on the same disk from a different program was written by a different programmer, and he stored his data a slightly different way. Think of a different angle of the filter. And maybe on a project, a large project, you have 6 or 7 or a dozen different applications. When you put all those filters together, that's why your data is dark. So when we go to put information in iModel 2.0, in the relational database in iModel 2.0, we need to do something I call alignment. This is a very clever PowerPoint representation of alignment. It has absolutely nothing to do with the way we actually align your data, but it looks really nice. Alignment is about things like, you know, lining up units, just things like distance. Are you stored in meters or feet? Temperature, is it Fahrenheit or centigrade? Angles, radians or degrees. There's all kinds of issues like that. And if we're going to pull all this stuff together and try to store it in a digestible form, and believe me, we want to store it in a digestible form because it can then be the input to lots of other systems, like, for example, machine learning systems. We can't leave it in this tangled mess. So we need to align it. So it's not a pretty problem, and it's not one that I'm proud that we have to talk about, but it's real. And we need to realign your data before we can use it and repurpose it and really facilitate what Greg describes as digital workflows. So that's my issue number one. Issue number two is another problem that I think you'll quickly recognize. When you create an iModel today, you run a program that assembles all the information in those disparate files and puts it into the iModel. And then someone somewhere says, wait, I changed that file. Well, then what you have to do is run the program again and make a different iModel. And the second iModel is 97.7% the same, but we have to give you a completely different iModel, and that is insane. So when I talk about embracing change, I mean, let's embrace change. Change is not an inconvenient truth that we can ignore. Change is the life cycle of the lifeblood of your projects. Project managers tell me, Keith, if nothing's changing, then nothing good is happening on my projects. Change is all the time happening. We should store, not the result of change, but store the change. Think about that. Let's embrace that. Store the change. Don't store the result of the change. Now, we need a place to put that change. Change happens in sequence. Somebody changes something, the next guy comes along and changes something else. We need a place to store it. This is going to be a cloud service. It's based on Azure, so it gets all the properties that Corey spoke about for reliability, uptime, and security. That's very important to you. But iModel Hub's mission is not to store iModels. iModel Hub's mission is to store change in iModels. Now, an example, an analogy may help. What if your bank statement your bank sent you a statement every month, and it just had two numbers on it? You started with this amount, you ended with that amount. That's what we have when we have two versions of an iModel. What they instead send you is a list of the transactions that happened. You wrote 4 checks, you made a deposit, you got some interest, and you had a service charge. That's how you know you got from the beginning balance to the end balance. It's done by a system in the bank. They probably call it an accounting system. I say what we need is an accounting system for your projects. And that's what iModel Hub can be. Think of the timeline of change being the analogy to the ledger of the transactions that happen in a bank. We can look and inspect at what happened at any point in time. We can point an iModel at the timeline in the iModel Hub and synchronize it forwards or backwards to get to any point in time on the project. Some points on the timeline are going to be very important, and you're going to name them. You will give an indication that that point in time was when we reviewed something or we did something, and that can be a very important but immutable point in time. One of the aspects of iModel Hub is it stores all the change, and it stores the history of change, but you can't go back and revise history. So if you remember a point on the timeline in your iModel Hub, you can always be guaranteed if you go back to that point, you'll get the exact same version of the iModel. So that's property number 2 of iModel 2.0's is they embrace change, and iModel Hub is the repository of change. So the last dimension that I want to talk about is accessibility. If iModel Hub stores only the change to iModels, some people ask me, well, where's my master iModel? And I say, there is no master iModel. There's just lots and lots of copies of the iModel. They're all synchronized through iModel Hub with changes, but each one of them is as reliable as the next. So where's my master copy? My master copy is my timeline. You have to embrace change, and that is a very, very important aspect of the way we're going to make things work. Now, iModels are files. iModels can be stored on disk. iModels are synchronized through iModel Hub. When you've got a copy of an iModel on your disk, you don't need to connect to iModel Hub to do any operation on it. So if you're out in the field, if you have an iModel on an iPad, let's say, a mobile device, it doesn't need connectivity to iModel Hub to be valuable. It only needs connection to iModel Hub to change its point on the timeline. So we're going to have lots and lots of copies of iModels. I gave you the examples of the mobile device and the desktop computer, but another important place where iModels are going to be stored is in the cloud. Services written either by you or by us that process copies of the iModel on instances of the cloud. That's why I wanted to point out that the cloud is a very large-scale number of computers, not one single large computer. And iModel Hub is our kind of central place for storing, change, and managing copies of the iModel. So now I bet you're asking, well, that all sounds good, Keith, but I got to get my job done tomorrow. how can I use this stuff without having to start over? And this is my best news of all. We have this concept we call iModel bridges. iModel bridges run in the context of ProjectWise. So you use ProjectWise every day. You use it the same way you've always used it when you install an iModel bridge. There's a bridge for every format application that you want to map into your iModel. The bridge runs automatically when anybody checks a change into ProjectWise, and it marks the change up on iModel Hub. You don't have to even tell your users that it's happening. Whenever they use ProjectWise, they will be updating the timeline in iModel Hub. And this thing is a wonderful, wonderful way to bridge the gap from where we currently are, which is dark data distributed in piles on disks, to automated cloud services through ProjectWise bridges. So this all may sound different and probably not what you were expecting. It is what we've been working on for a long time. I'm very, very excited about it. Maybe obviously. I think it's going to change certainly our business, but I hope it will also help you change your business, because I really believe the going digital problem opportunity, let's not call it a problem, is going to be real, and it's going to be soon.